Welcome to the Rock Solid Family Podcast. This is Merrill Hutchinson alongside of my lovely wife, Linda. Linda, how are you doing today?
You're in a goofy mood today.
It's
early, too.
I'm nervous.
You're
I've been
nervous?
doubting everything I've been doing today.
my
I can't
gosh.
seem to do anything right. Everything I'm doing, I just go, oh, did I do that the right way? Did I do that the right way?
That's a good segue.
Yeah, I thought so.
What are we talking about today?
We are talking about, I don't know exactly the right title, but the doubting parent. You know, it just seems like so often, and I'm going to be critical, mostly our moms. This is more of a mom-generated thing, but it's dads who just go, okay, well, whatever you want to do. But the doubting of, am I doing this right? And especially we're talking about younger kids here initially, but it does grow into how we're parenting as they get older. So we're going to be talking about the doubting parent. And again, this is not to beat up on anyone because I think none of us have it down pat. We oftentimes talk about the firstborn versus the lastborn. The firstborn, you know, you're sterilizing their pacifiers, everything, and the last one, you're lucky if you even wipe it off on yourself. So there's just that process of going through and becoming more comfortable with being a parent. But until you get there, there's just a lot of overcorrection and just hypersensitivity to things.
I thought you were going to use the word confident. I think that our parents have lost confidence.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is a lot of women. A lot of women who are connected to social media, Google a lot, you know, watch a lot of YouTube, and think that they have to get better. You know, Girl Power Half Hour, which is our monthly girl show on Rock Solid Families Podcast. If you've not seen Bridget and Jenna, they kind of talked about this in one of their episodes.
Because they are the young moms.
They are the young moms who feel that pressure, and they do compare, and they do hear a lot of strong opinions from their peers. And you and I are to the place where you're like, we're the dusting off, if we're lucky, the pacifier.
Yeah.
Which when it's our grandchildren, if you're not careful, and I know there's some grandmas out here that feel that way, like they're being criticized by their daughter-in-laws for everything. You know, you don't hold them right, you don't feed them right, you don't, put them down to sleep right, you don't put them in the car right, and it's really unnerving to, a lot of older folks who are like, I've done this before.
Yeah. Well, and think about, for some reason, catastrophizing seems to get people's attention and it sells. I mean, I just think recently back to COVID, where I'm not saying COVID is good or bad. What I'm saying is it was blown up so that everybody thought that they were dying tomorrow from COVID. And so it makes us go to an extreme and kind of lose our mind to think rationally. And so I think that's, you hear, listen, some of these things are terrible, a SIDS, a death from SIDS, a disease that your kid gets, your kid's in an accident. We're not going to minimize any of those things, but you have to be really careful about jumping to the extremes or overcorrection. So.
Right. You talked about COVID. There were so many families who were divided by masks or no masks, vaccines or no vaccines, gathering together or not gathering together. And there was some rifts that occurred that are still not healed by just the differencing of opinion. So we're going to be talking about that today, specifically about young parents and the doubting and the questioning, the second guessing that's going on, and really maybe where it's coming from and how to combat it. Yeah. So if you are a parent or someone who maybe is in this generation of just really second guessing, please share this show with them. It's an important show today.
Yeah, and it's not just for new moms. I mean, because you'll see this all the way through getting your kids through college, and then even when they leave the nest, how you can tend to hyper-focus on certain things that your kids are doing, and they happen to be 35 years old, So,
and you still feel responsible for if they have a job.
Let's thank our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring today's Rock Solid Families podcast. We also want to thank all of you guys out there listening and sharing our shows. We greatly appreciate that. One of the biggest compliments that we get is just the fact that a show is shared because it was worthy enough to do that. And we appreciate that because hopefully it's helping somebody that you're sharing it with. So anyway, continue to do that. Give us 5-star ratings. Helps boost us up on the search engines. So we thank you for that.
And also, every month we do Families Rock intensive class. It's a parenting class, especially for contentious relationships between mom and dad. Maybe there's court ordered situations, co-parenting problems. So if there's contention and there's questioning in how we should raise our children, we would love for you to attend one of our Families Rock classes. And the next one is going to be Saturday, April 26th, from 8:30 to noon. It's going to be at the Lawrenceburg Firehouse on Tate Street in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. So if you live in the greater Cincinnati tri-state area, we would love for you to join us. Or we could do it one-on-one in a coaching session. And if you're interested in getting some help, this show kind of triggers something for you or someone you love, call us 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-7625. Or you can reach out to us at rocksolidfamilies.org. And at the bottom of every page, it says make an appointment.
Yeah, good deal.
So,
all right, so I kind of have a goal today.
Yeah.
And the goal is I'm asking all parents, and I'm going to say primarily our moms, I hope you can take a deep breath and just give yourself a break today. Just release some of the anxiety and the tension and take a deep breath and know it's going to be okay, right? And so that's kind of a goal of just saying, it's all right, step back, because, life's crazy enough. We don't need to make our house crazy. We've said that many times on shows. Like, the world's already crazy. Like, I don't need to do anything more inside my house to make it crazy. And so,
and the Bible says to be in the world, but not of the world. And so, yes, we're not saying you should go on a deserted island somewhere and raise your children because the world is falling apart and the sky is falling, but to be aware, but also, the Bible says that Jesus came full of grace and full of truth. And so I think sometimes we swing the pendulum one way where it's all truth and it's just, we're just going to fire at all these laws and rules and ideas and facts, or, we're not going to have any of that, right? And so we're asking for today, I think a goal is also common ground, that there is a moderation that is healthy and reasonable, okay, for families to expect and to fight for, instead of these extremes that I think are causing more anxiety for parents and also children.
Yeah.
It's getting, it's
ultimately,
contagious.
That's where you actually start to see it.
Yeah.
Guys, it's, we've said this in other shows too. It's only been in the last few decades that we've become this anxious, this so much doubting, second guessing. It's only been in the last couple of decades that it's gotten to this level. And, largely this is influenced by social media, by everybody being hyper connected and into each other's world, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And, and so it's so much easier now to act like you're, an expert in everything by sharing things or stating things or having a blog. And again, it's not that all of that's bad, right? But as we talked about before, like the pendulum swings hard both ways. And man, when somebody's really passionate about something and they start writing articles about, what did you mention the other day, the crunchy parent,
the crunchy moms,
which, and it's hard. I think there's good intention behind all of these, but these are the moms who are, I think it's based out of the granola era, right? I want to get back to nature. I want to get back to earth. We're going to get back to the fundamentals, which that in itself sounds really good. It's when it's driven to an extreme and then you're made feel guilty if you don't do this new way.
Right.
That's where we get into the dangers.
Right. Yeah. If you don't homeschool, if you're not doing home births, if you're not making your own baby food, like all of these things.
Oh, you went to a hospital to have your kids?
And I had an epidural too.
Well, that was a big one, huh? Right? When we were having kids, like, oh, you're not going natural?
Yeah.
You know?
And again, if that's you, that's great. But what we're saying is that this culture of intensive parenting has created an environment where parents feel this pressure to optimize every child's development stage to perfection. And it's leading to really a heightened worry about, am I making the right choices?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, am I scarring my kids for life? Am I creating this thing? For instance, I know a huge one is vaccines.
Oh, yeah.
Do I vaccinate my baby or not? And you get to make that choice for the most part. There's some obviously requirements and things for school and stuff, which is why some people are homeschooling. But to put that pressure and expectation and guilt on other parents is causing other parents to just stay up at night and to not be able to sleep or worry. It's just getting out of control.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the actual factors then that are creating all of this anxiety. And one of the first ones is not just the advice, the amount of conflicting advice.
Yes, information.
Right? And so I read one article that says this is a better way to do something, and then I read an opposing article, and both of them sound so convincing to me. And then, from that, there's this idea of now I'm second guessing myself.
Yeah.
Now I'm doubting.
Paralyzed.
Right? Yeah. And when you and I were preparing for this show, I said, just give me 2 minutes, and I can find as much stuff that is supporting a particular. We talked about the family bed, sleeping together. I can find as much stuff that supports it as I can against it, and it's like, oh my gosh, which way is the right way?
Yeah. Another one is just the society pressures and the competition. What we're going to ask you today is to really try to seek that middle ground of moderation. And it's not about your kids being perfect. It's not about you getting it all right. You're not. And let's just get that out of the, let's just get that elephant out of the room. But I know that there's so much worry that I'm going to kill them, right? I'm going to end their life.
Going to die due to my
neglect, right? And so we're asking you to really be careful of the pressures that you feel from peers or society or culture in general. You mentioned the family bed, hun, and so what we've heard is this: it makes you a great mom if you have this co-sleeping. If everybody sleeps together, it creates this bonding and attachment. But what we're finding out, and we know this by experience and by our education and by our years and years of working with parents, is it actually creates more anxiety for a child because they don't feel, they're not learning how to self-soothe. They're not learning how to feel safe and secure in their own space. Instead of, they have to be clinging to you. They have to be sleeping with you. They have to be sitting on your lap. And so there is a point of that when they're an infant of bonding, but then they have to learn how to be independent. And we're really preventing that by the family bed.
And we are, speaking of the bed thing, it usually becomes a wedge between mom and dad. And so often when we see marital strife going on, we go ask the question, are the kids sleeping in the bed? And way too often we get a, well, yeah.
It's like a proud
And usually the dad is the one that's ultimately booted to the couch. So anyway.
And by the way, dad's the bad guy because he doesn't want that. And the fact that he's fighting for the marriage.
He's saying, can we put the kids in their own room?
It's almost like you must not love your kids. And we're here to say, that it's honestly healthy that your children are sleeping in their own bed, in their own room. And that is something that creates safety and security for your kids, as strange as it is. But they're going to use it against you. They're going to say, I'm scared. I don't want to be alone. I need you. And man, as a mom, that really pulls on your heartstrings.
I don't know about you. I still remember thinking there were monsters under my bed.
Sure. But I will tell you, and moms, I'm going to speak to you specifically. This is your insecurities. This is your anxieties. These are your second guessing, okay? Your children is following your lead. And so this is becoming your pacifier or your security blanket is your children. And so please, please get help for that. I work with moms every day where we're having these conversations, but they're good conversations that lead to better health for your whole family.
Another thing that is kind of driving a lot of this second guessing and overkill on things is just now the fear of the external threats. Remember our oldest son his prayer was, never let there be a fire, robber, tornado, or flood.
And he said it really, really fast.
He said it really fast every night before we went to bed. And those things have always been around, fires, robbers, tornadoes, and floods. And they are real. So we're not going to try to say, you know, oh, that never happens. But the idea that now we have bubble wrapped, put cameras on every stinking door in the house, you know, we have locked everything down to the point where our kids are seeing that and they're freaking out if it's not put into that place, right? Like if I never questioned once that my parents didn't buckle our seatbelts, right? Because we just didn't buckle seatbelts. We didn't wear seatbelts when we were kids. And now, I mean, the kids would absolutely, and again, rightfully, we've come to prove that seatbelts are a good thing, but it's just the extreme because we have heightened the fear in our own kids.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it can go to an extreme of what other people are doing around your child. So like, you know, you're not allowed to cough, you're not allowed to kiss them, you're not allowed to, you have to wash your hands before you touch a child. I mean, it's so extreme that the kids are getting hyper focused. Like, does that have food dye? You know, does that have preservatives? We are creating this almost conspiracy theory. The sky is falling, the world's coming to an end tomorrow. And honestly, we're creating more anxiety in our kids through those extremes, fears and threats.
And the next one really that's kind of driving this is the whole comparison model, right? That's a struggle in all of our lives, whether we're comparing money, clothes, parenting, religions, whatever it is. We're like, well, how do we stack up against the others, right? And if I can be better than you, then I'm at least good, okay? And so this whole idea of this comparison thing, we use our kids in that way too. Well, at least my kids aren't as bad as their kids, you know? So we're overcompensating by trying to make our kids measure up relative to another outside family from us. And we just have to be really careful. Your kids are your kids. You are uniquely different. And, you know, so you want to be really careful not to let the other kids or the other families in the neighborhood be the standard that you're trying to raise
so
up
I'm
to.
just going to call out as well. There's another thing that comes up as a theme constantly, and that is the celebrations and the extreme that we're going to for the first birthday, the second birthday, the graduations, right? All of these things, and we are Pinteresting them, we're Instagramming them, we are comparing on Facebook. Like,
getting circus elephants.
Oh my gosh, you know, bounce houses and ponies. I mentioned that to two moms one time because they were both talking about birthday parties coming up. Their kids were they were 4 and 6 and birthdays were coming up. And I said, before you know it, you guys are going to have bounce houses and ponies. They had both.
Yeah.
And one had a bounce house and one had a pony. And it's like, we've got to step back and say, is this really worth it? Is it worth that we're going into debt? Is it worth it that I'm having I have a one mom who is 8 months pregnant and she works full time and she is planning a birthday party and it has got to be the best. And it's stressing her out.
Right.
And her husband is like, how about just pizza in the backyard, you know? And so we really have got to step back and say, is it worth it? The amount of time and money and energy and really emphasis on a first birthday that a child's not even going to remember, but it makes a great picture moment. You got to have the balloon arch and you got to have the picture spot and you got to have the, you know, theme, and which I was feeling a little guilty and convicted because I did buy some little balloons and things for our grandson's birthday, little construction theme, you know. But it's hard because that comparison model and feeling like I have to have the perfect birthday or graduation party for my child.
Yeah, and we're not against by any means, guys. We're not saying we don't celebrate these birthdays and these special times, but the idea that we elevate the kid almost, you know, that they're on the throne, that is their special day, and now they become the king. That sounds good, but when all of a sudden they're not 1 year old, but they're 5 years old, and you've elevated them to that, and they do start to have a memory of it. Every year you kind of have to top it in their mind. So the next thing you know, you're like, well, what are you doing for my birthday for me this year? And it becomes an obligation to you to actually outdo what you did the previous year. So you just want to be careful. You're setting yourself up for some parenting issues that are going to be harder to back out of later.
You brought up a good point because then you create an expectation. And then they get kind of nasty and a little bit entitled, like, well, that's not good enough. You know, we need more. So if you could set the stage early with your kiddos, I don't know about you, but we would have grandma and grandpa over and we'd have a cake that mom made. And I got to pick the meal.
We got to pick our whether we're going to have cake or pie.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I remember picking the meal. And we would get usually a single present. Mom and Dad would get you whether you got a pair of shoes or I got a baseball glove. It would be a single kind of thing. And again, but we had 5 kids. And so I think that's the blessing actually of having larger families, that people learn proper perspective, that no, everybody has to be able to share in this, and it's not all about one person.
Yeah, I loved it when your mom kind of made this routine where all the grandkids' birthdays, they got a card with $10 in it. And then she set up a date where they were going to go and they could pick their favorite fast food. So they could go to Burger King.
Oh, that's not healthy.
Or Kids Are Kings, or they get a crown or whatever. And then they got to go, she would take them to Walmart and they got to spend the $10 and buy something. And that was just an experience that she wanted to have with them.
Right.
And it was really cool because every child knew, and they would even be talking like, where are you going to go on your birthday dinner? And so that was just set and expected, but then it was just that moment and that experience that she was creating.
Yeah. Guys, so there are different terms that you hear kind of bounced around here. And so some of these just fall under, we've done entire shows on some of these, but this is where you start to get into these things like helicopter parenting, snowplow parenting. These are these things that come up from this. And so what we're trying to do is getting to recognize that these are anxiety driven. They are emotionally and anxiety driven behaviors or parenting styles from the parent.
The most important thing parents can do for their child's emotional well-being is to manage their own emotions effectively. When parents are calm and regulated, they provide a secure base for their children and model healthy coping mechanisms. That's from Daniel Siegel, who is a psychiatrist and author of several books, including The Whole Brain Child. And so he's just really saying that parental anxiety is contagious and children are attuned. So when we have kids who are brought in by parents and can you help them? They don't want to go to school, or they don't want to get up in the morning, or they're scared of this or that. It's usually it comes back to the anxiety of the parent.
And that's why oftentimes we say, well, we're not really going to work with the child. We're going to work with you, mom or dad.
Especially when they're young.
Yeah, because really you have so much more control over the household, the mood, the anxiety levels in the house. And when you can actually start to regulate yourself, have some moderation within your house will start to be that way. And the kids will start to settle down.
Temperature kind of goes down. Philippians 4 verses 6 and 7 say, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God is what we're talking about, right? Will transcend all understanding, and it will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. And so he's saying no matter if there is a tornado warning, or if the stock market crashes, or if there is a worldwide pandemic, we can still have peace in our home, but we've got to, with prayer and petition, present those requests to God. We got to point eyes to God and say, God's got us.
Yeah.
We're going to be okay. And no matter what happens, God will take care of us. And so that is where we can find our peace.
Guys, as we talk about this, and a lot of our conversation has kind of been around the little ones. And so your anxiety to achieve as a parent, right? You're trying to achieve this level of perfection or excellence or whatever it is. That then translates into your expectation of high achievement for your kids. And so hear me on this. We're not saying that we shouldn't have expectations that our kids do their best. What we're saying is you have to be really careful on how you set the level of achievement. And so achievement can basically sometimes be, I'm going to overschedule you. You're going to be the best baseball player on the 8-year-old baseball team. Okay. Achieve. What are your grades? And so every kid's driven differently. We had one child that was very self-driven. I mean, he would wake up and he was out there to just achieve. Okay. And again, that was of him. And then we've had our other kids are like,
I don't feel like playing this year.
And again, so you parent them differently. We actually had to dial our overachiever, we had to dial him back. Hey, you need to just go out and play.
Yeah.
Just go goof around. The other one, no, you're not going out and playing anymore. You're going to stay in and do a little bit of work. And so it's that whole idea of you helping to get moderation. You're the moderation guideline person. You're the one who you're the adult, you're the authority. You understand moderation more than they do. So you got to know when to turn it up on a certain child or to back it off on a child. All kids don't achieve at the exact same levels.
Yeah. Dr. Madeline Levine, who is a clinical psychologist and author of Teach Your Children Well, Why Values and Character Matter More Than Grades, Trophies, and Ivy League admissions, she says this shift that we're talking about, this intensity, has created a culture of intensive parenting where every decision feels so high staked.
Yeah.
Like I just was talking to a student this morning, actually, who is running track, but last year he didn't do it. And so, but there are some parents who be like, oh my gosh, but you're going to be behind and then you're not going to be able to get a scholarship and you're not going to be able to make first string or whatever. And so we have this intensity, like every decision is a life or death thing. And that's just not the way God works. I mean, that's kind of putting the power out of God's hands and into your hands. Like you're the creator, you're the savior, you're the fixer. And really we got to put our trust in God. Like God's got us, he will guide us. And if we take a year off or we don't go do this or get that great grade that, I think about, hun, you talked about our overachiever who had the grades and got the appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy. Okay. And then our second oldest, who did not get the grades, he didn't make it in.
They were still very, very good grades.
They were still great grades, but he didn't make it in. And he got a scholarship to Miami University instead, right? And so, but then he said, I still want to do that. So he went back and he tried to do it again, and he still didn't get in. Okay. And I remember the disappointment in him. Like, man, I kind of failed myself. And he was disappointed. But then you look back now and see what God did. And he would say, that was the best no God ever gave me. Because one, he had a college experience that his brother did not have. And he also met his wife at Miami University. And so God had a plan even when in his disappointment. And so if we had tried to save him or rescue him or fix it or push his way through, then we would have missed out on what God's plan ultimately was.
And that's what we start to play God, right? Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him and he will make your path straight. And this is that idea, like you got to sometimes sit back and go, I'm going to take this situation for what it is. I'm going to stop trying to put the square pegs into the round hole. This is when we're overworking situations and we're stressing and we're anxious, it's a great sign to us to saying we're out of line.
Okay, so we're going to finish off this podcast with some strategies, some next steps for you. If you're that anxious parent, if you've been doubting or second guessing yourself in the parenting realm, first of all, here's number one. We want you to take time to reflect and pray over decisions, but then once you make a decision, stop second guessing yourself, okay? We want you to prayerfully discern. We want you to get wise counsel. But then, like Merrill, you said, you can find whatever your itching ears want to hear. But we're saying God and his word are really the first go-to. But then once you make a decision, don't second guess.
So self-reflection, hon, in this part, just to pull this out. So you are going to go back and think about the decision you made, okay? But your question to yourself is, well, how did that work out for us? And if it worked out well, great. If it didn't work out well, you say, okay, we're going to alter it the next time.
Course correction.
Versus if I make a decision and I don't even know the outcome and I'm beating myself up before I even know the outcome. Oh my gosh, I wonder if I did the right thing. I wonder if I did the right thing, So part of good leadership is make the decision, pull the trigger, and then deal with it on the other side, right? And so this is that self-reflection. This is the debriefing meeting, right? Like, let's hear how it went.
Exactly. The second one is to take your emotions captive, okay? Learn to recognize when your emotions are getting worked up. Learn to calm down in the middle of a tornado warning, right? Or a stock market crash. Take deep breaths. Talk it out with other adult friends. Try not to talk it out with your kids and kind of, pour your anxieties or fears onto them. Okay. So you really want to regain your composure so that you can lead well. They need to see a calm, peaceful environment in parents.
Yeah. The third one is stop beating yourself up over the past.
Yeah.
I have a rule, and that is you get the Monday morning film review day. In other words, in football and NFL, on Sunday they play the game. On Monday they spend their time reviewing a film. On Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they prepare to move on. Okay. And so, yes, you do need to acknowledge when you've done something wrong, when it didn't work out. That's the self-reflection part. But you don't get to beat yourself up, because that's the work of Satan, keeping you anxious and nervous and making you afraid to even move on to the next play. So it's really important. You don't get to beat yourself up if you're going to really truly parent your kids well. So you just give yourself some grace, because you're going to have to give your kids some grace, right? You don't want you'll have certain naturally anxious kids will naturally beat themselves up. You have to help them regulate that by saying, no, give yourself a break. Let's get over this.
Next one is you want to challenge and reframe those negative thought patterns, okay? If you keep having these ruminating thoughts of, oh my gosh, my child is going to get sick, or oh my gosh, my child is going to die, or oh my gosh, I'm failing as a parent, like please reframe those and get help for them. That might be anxiety in you, which could be helped by talk therapy or some medication. It could be that you're surrounding yourself with negative people, some crunchy moms who are kind of guilting you and judging you and condemning you for not using cloth diapers or not homeschooling your child. And so you really want to really question, like, okay, why am I thinking this way? Why am I second guessing? Why am I downing myself? Okay, so we really want to challenge and reframe those negative thought patterns.
Yeah, the next one is seek support and connection, but I want to put a little caveat in that. You want to seek the connections and the advice giving that you're going to try to seek out. I'm going to ask you, go to wisdom. Seek out wisdom, not knowledge. Knowledge is the person who's your age and they're trying to figure it out with you, and they just read one more book than you did, so they happen to be the smart one. Go to the wisdom, and the wisdom is generally going to be the people who have been there and done that. And so now this is where you go speak to the older lady, the grandma, your own mom or dad, and you go, okay, what did you do?
Yeah.
And what you're going to find typically is a much softer, well, here's how we did it. And some of this worked, some of it didn't. But mostly you're going to see it'll all work out. And so seek wisdom rather than that knowledge of what's the latest.
Yeah, by Googling it. Oh, my goodness. If I hear one more parent go, well, I heard this, I Googled it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it can really bring anxiety on.
Yeah.
That's why I love that we are involved in a program where there's mentor couples that are walking alongside younger mentees that maybe are new parents or newly married. And so to have a mentor, and I hope you do too, whether it be individually or as a couple or as a family, that you have somebody you're looking toward who have what you would like as far as like healthy family, healthy children, well-adjusted adult children, and say, okay, tell me how that worked. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is a lot of wisdom and experience. And so you just don't want to look at them and like, oh, you don't understand, or you didn't do it right. And really, we kind of have to rely on some wise counsel.
Yeah. The next one, guys, is really, and this is for our overachieving parents, is the idea of embrace the imperfection, all right? There's a whole idea in Wincott's book of her talking about the idea of there is such a thing as good enough, right? And my dad always had a phrase when we were building something outside, he'd say, it ain't a church, right? So like if you're...
What's that mean?
Which is like, don't worry about getting everything perfect. We're building a log home here, and so the logs are already irregular. So don't worry about everything being to the 30 seconds inch when you're putting it together. It's good enough. And so there is such a thing as good enough, because good enough means, well, what's the job you're trying to get done?
Yeah.
Get that job done, because there might be something bigger out here, and you're spending all your time hyper-focusing on something that just doesn't matter that much. So there is such a thing as good enough, and then move on, versus everything has to be perfect and right.
Oh man, I can see those A personality moms already like, well, Merrill, I good enough's not enough.
It just drives me crazy.
And so again, you got to pick your battles, and decide really, is it that big a deal if they're wearing their rain boots today instead of gym shoes? like they'll probably figure it out that they can't run as fast, and it's like, but we as parents, especially moms, like, oh my gosh, who's going to judge me at the playground when my child's wearing rain boots? It's not even raining today. It's sometimes not worth the effort, or not worth the problem.
We hear oftentimes, especially in the winter, my child is wearing shorts.
Oh yeah,
to
or not
school.
a coat. Yeah.
And we had that battle as well. And finally, you just have to go. You know what? Go ahead and wear your shorts. And when we have a fire drill and everybody's evacuated out of the building for the next 30 minutes, and you're freezing because it's 20 degrees out, maybe you'll learn. So those natural consequences are better teachers than you are.
But I will say that there's a lot of moms out there be like, oh my gosh, people are going to think I'm a terrible mom. I let my kid go to school in shorts.
Yep. No, you were a good mom.
We're going to have to get past that.
Yeah.
The next one is let them fall. Let them fall. Prioritize the resiliency and letting your child scuff their knee and maybe break an arm. And our kids broke an arm off the playground. But
and I told him to suck it up.
You did. Oh my gosh! Don't do that. It was the next day where Merrill finally.
No, it was actually later that night
because
it was that night. I said, I think we probably should go down to the urgent care, and they X-rayed it and. It was broken.
But our point is that we want them to learn from their mistakes. We want them to build resiliency. Our kids are not resilient. We've actually talked about this in shows before. So please reduce the urge to overprotect and rescue them. That's why rescue parenting is one of our things. But let them fall. Let them learn.
The last thing, guys, Rock Solid Families is faith-based. And when we say we're faith-based, we often say we're not a church. That's not our deal. What we are is we're trying to seek the foundation of truth. And so if you really want to know how to parent, thank you for listening to this show, but you really just need to read Scripture. You really need to learn. The Bible speaks often on how parents should behave. Don't exasperate your children and spare the rod, spoil the child. Like there's all kinds of different things, and reading them in their proper context helps to reinforce what you're doing and gives you the guidelines to go off of. So don't be a stranger. None of this is new. This whole parenting thing, guys, is not new. We just happen to think that we're the smartest generation that's ever come, and we're trying to rewrite it. And it's just not the case. Seek biblical guidance.
That's so funny you say that, because we just had our Synergy, our before school Bible study today, and the teacher was saying that the Bible is the only living book.
Yeah.
And that it lives and it breathes and it
doesn't go out of date.
It doesn't go out of date.
No.
And so that's really important. The Bible says that God disciplines those he loves. And so, when we are thinking, oh, I shouldn't, tell my child no, or I shouldn't make him do these chores or whatever, it's like, okay, is that what the Bible says? Because that's not how God has shown us how to live and how he treats us. And so we do want to use that biblical guidance. We do want to go back to the Bible and people who align with God and his word, because that's really where healthy lives.
Yeah.
And that's where we can be protected and find peace, even in the middle of a storm.
Yeah. So guys, we're wrapping up, and hopefully at the end of this, you are taking a deep breath, giving yourself a break, and just seeking the moderation on this for yourself, for your kids, for the family. This will help to get some peace into your home. It'll also really help to build your marriage, because, a lot of times kids can be a great stress within a marriage. And so it really sets a calmness that most of us could really use.
A big divider, especially as we were talking about parties and co-sleeping and things like that. These are very things that divide a husband and wife, a mother and a father. And so you want to be ultimately united in your parenting. And so it maybe does mean you find that moderation that's maybe not the extreme of what you want, but what works for your family and your spouse.
Yeah. Guys, we want to thank you again for listening. If we can help in any way, again, reach out to us at 812-576-7625. Check out our website at rocksolidfamilies.org. We've always got different things going on with our events coming up, and blogs, and access to all of our shows. So check that out. We want to thank our sponsors again. We want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions, Maxwell Construction, and the Hoosier Ice House for being alongside of us and sponsoring the messages that we are putting out every week.
And I want to thank God, because honestly, when we gave our lives to Christ, I was 30, you were 32, and really that set us on a course as young parents to really lean in and really build on a rock solid foundation that really has changed our life and brought us a peace I didn't have before and you didn't have before. And so we would love that to have that for you too. And so thank you so much for listening to the Rock Solid Family Podcast, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families Podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families Podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.
Rock Solid Families would like to thank Hoosier Ice House for being a proud sponsor of the Rock Solid Families podcast. In the heart of historic Lawrenceburg, Indiana, the Ice House is at the corner of Vine and High Streets. The historic building evokes a feeling of comfort with spacious indoor and outdoor dining, a large bar, and comfortable dining areas. Large enough to host parties, yet intimate enough to feel like your favorite neighborhood restaurant. So thank you again for the Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast.